Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I'd give you a little bit of a prophetic update. Been so excited because, I've been waiting to just give a short video like this before, and there's just a lot of things that have happened. Things always happen on at the end of 7 year cycles. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that biblically, what that means. And it's the seventh year if you haven't already figured out from my excitement because of all the stuff that's manifesting. And, just like how we have Sunday through Saturday, basically, in our weeks, is that God has 7 year cycles and he deals with this. And you see this as God created, the world and human beings, and he did it in 6 days. And then on the seventh day, he rested. And, we have our Saturday through Sunday and, or Sunday through Saturday rather. And, the Jews have their Sabbath on Saturday, which is day 7, and we have ours on basically it'd be day 8, which is kind of confusing. People would be it's day 1 of the next week, but it's the 8th day, which new beginning day. But regardless, there's always a Sabbath, and kind of marks that end and a beginning of a new week. And so that's how God works. 7 is a number of perfection, and 70 times 7 is 490. That's a famous verse. Peter was asking Jesus how long should he forgive his brother, and Jesus said 70 times 7. And the reason why he said that is because there was this prophecy in Daniel about that the Messiah, the Savior, was going to come. Basically, God in the flesh was going to come, and this was 70 times 7 these weeks, basically years. So 70 times 7, so 490 years that it was going to come. And so the Jews were they knew about this prophecy of 490 years represents God coming to earth and the Savior. And so when Jesus said back to Peter, you forgive your brother 7 times 70, 490 years, because they knew that 490 represents God. God's going to come in 490 years. And so that's how long you need to forgive your brother, because look, God has forgiven you and your civilization and your culture and all the stuff that you've done and all the curses that that you should have endured or whatever. And after 490 years, he's going to send Jesus to save you. And so just like God saves people, that's how much you should forgive people. Try to forgive like God forgives people. Isn't that interesting? So he told them 490 years. So they knew about that. So God works in sevens, and that's 70 sevens is 490 years. And so he works in these 7-year cycles. He did it back then. There were 77 years. There were 70 times 7 years, rather, is 490. And, God works in sevens in a way that the first place basically it was at in the Bible was with Joseph. And Joseph interpreted a dream of Pharaoh where he had a dream about 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows. And he told them that the 7 fat cows mean 7 years of plenty, and that the 7 skinny cows, they mean 7 years of famine and, hardship and whatnot. So you have 7 good years, 7 bad years. He told them that. And so the Bible is continually working in sevens, and weeks to them actually mean like a week of years in many ways. And so believe it or not, it's year 5782, Jewish year. That would be September 2021 to September 2022. And that is a 7-year. Like if you look at 5782 and if it's divisible by 7, that's a Shemitah year, what they call a Shemitah year. And on Shemitah years, it's like the Sabbath year. It's like the year of rest. But, the Israelites ended up being punished. And basically what happened is the 7th year used to be for blessing, and it ended up being for punishment because they disobeyed God. And so it ended up being, what we've seen in these cycles since then. If you look at 2008, 2009 was a Shemitah year. 2021 to 2022 is a Shemitah year. 2014, 2015 was a Shemitah year. 2000, 2001 was a Shemitah year. You will see things that happened, catastrophic things, governments changing, earthquakes, all these things. You'll see most of these things all happen. These signs happen on on Shemitah years is what they call it, on Sabbath years, on the 7th year of a 7-year cycle, the very last year, very last day of a week of years, if you would call that. And so I want to kind of talk about where we're at, because we're at the Shemitah year. We're in July right now. It ends in September. The Shemitah year ends in September. So I want to talk about some stuff that has happened and some stuff that's yet to happen come September, once this thing ends and begins another 7-year cycle. So one thing that happened that was absolutely incredible, and let me show you this with a picture. I think you're going to think this is interesting. This will help you out a bunch too. So what I'm talking about, here's some very interesting things here. Here's some signs you see there in 1966, all the way to the left, financial crisis, oil shock in 1973. By the way, in 66 to 67, that was basically, there was a blood moon tetrad, 4 blood moons. Israel was attacked from all sides and miraculously won this, what they call the 7-day war. So you have a 7-day war on the 7th year. That's incredible. 1973 there, then you have 1980, recession, stock market crash. 9/11, obviously we know about September 11th, stock market crash. Then right here, this actually goes to 2015, and it says that there's a mega crash alert in 2015. But that's what I want to talk about, because basically in 2014, 2015, there was these 4 blood moons. Well, there's 4 blood moons this year too. Now, a lot of people say that these 4 blood moon tetrads are very common. For there to be 4 blood moons in the beginning of a Shemitah, meaning that 2016 was the first year of the Shemitah, the last year of the Shemitah is this year, 2022. For there to be 4 blood moons at the beginning of the Shemitah and the end of the Shemitah is unprecedented. It's amazing. And you have 4 to start this 7-year cycle that we just had, and now we're ending it. It ends in September, and we have the 4th one. We had 4 here too, and the 4th one actually ends on Election Day 2022. Isn't that interesting? Not only that, but the one before this, the 3rd one that we just had, was on 5/16, and that was the anniversary of God miraculously sending manna from heaven to supernaturally provide for the Israelites in the desert. The anniversary of that was on when that blood moon came. Why is that important? Because we're having all these food shortages. There's all this, it's manufactured food shortage, because it's like, there's all these random fires and all these food processing plants. I think we're almost up to 50 now or something like that. Absolutely insane. And so God sent a blood moon this year on the day where he provided a supernatural manna from heaven. Isn't that interesting? He did it. Man is causing, these governments are causing this economic collapse, and it's manufactured. And it's not God judging us, it's manufactured. And God said with that blood moon, a sign from heaven, this is the anniversary of him supernaturally providing food to his people. That is incredible. Cannot make that up. And so you have Trump. In between the Shemitah year, obviously you had Trump. And so what happened is when he put his hand on the Bible when he got inaugurated, he was 70 years old, 7 months old, and 7 days old. 777, his first day in office. Not only that, but 2,000 years from that day was year 3777. So that year that he put his hand on the Bible, Trump was 70 years old, 7 months old, and 7 days old on year 5777, 2017. 2,000 years from that was year 3777, and Jesus was 21 years old. What's 7 plus 7 plus 7? It's 21. Jesus represented 777. Trump represented 77 months, 7 days on year 5777. You cannot make this up, guys. This is incredible. And this happened during this Shemitah year. So these 4 blood moons that happened in 2014, 2015, a lot of speculation from the church and prophets and things. What does this mean? The last 4 that are just coming, obviously the third one, the one that happened in 2022 was the one of supernatural food from heaven God provided. And the one that's coming for the 2022 midterms, that election night. Wow. Absolute wow. But you've got those, we've never had 4 of them, one over here, to begin and to end a 7-year cycle before. We've never had that. And I believe that Trump has a lot to do with that. It says in Isaiah 45 that God sent a secular man, a man that did not know God, and he said he's going to anoint him. He called him my Cyrus, like my name's Aaron, so it'd be like him saying, my Aaron. Incredible. He called him my Cyrus, and he was going to raise him up to take over Babylon, to take over this demonic system when it was time for it to be judged. Isn't that interesting? So maybe Trump is a Cyrus. They prophesied that he was a Cyrus. The church did in 2015 when he was just beginning to come into the news. The church prophesied he was a Cyrus. So what happened, a miraculous thing that happened in 2018, on May 14th, 2018, he moved the embassy of Jerusalem from Tel Aviv to, the embassy of the United States from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem on May 14th, 2018. And they said it was going to be World War III. They said it's stirring up trouble in the Middle East. It's going to be terrible. And what happened is all these countries followed him. Guatemala and I can't remember what European countries did, but they started to move their embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, why is this important? What's up with this? Because 70 years to the day before that, from May 14th, 2018, was the year 1948, May 14th. And what happened? That was when Jerusalem, when Israel became a Jewish state. Now, the Jews knew this, and they were looking to see what would happen 70 years. They're very smart. They're into that type of stuff, the numbers and stuff. And so what they did was they said, Trump is a Cyrus. So the church prophesied he was a Cyrus back in 2015. 2018, when he made this decision, 70 years to the day, didn't even know he was doing it, inadvertently, unknowingly did this 70 years to the day. Israel calls him Cyrus on national television. Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, calls him Cyrus. And look at this. If I could help you out with this. This is Cyrus and Trump on a coin that they made. Now, one of the most amazing things about Cyrus, you can read this here. It says, and he charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem. Trump moved the house, the United States House embassy, moved it to Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as a Jewish state. They recognized Jerusalem as the Jewish state in May 14th, 1948. In 70 years to the day Trump did this. Absolutely incredible. And they called him, the Holy Land called him Cyrus, because Cyrus ended 70 years of exile for the Jews. And so maybe Trump is setting America up for revival. He's ending the 70-year drought of I don't know, from here until 1948, we've had a lot of corruption and stuff in the government. It's had a feel like it's been good. 1950s and things were the golden age, but there's been some disturbing things that have happened to try to distract us and things that have happened in our government. And it's manifested all the way till today. You could say that things are going downhill, and we kind of need like a Cyrus figure to help us with government. That's exactly what Cyrus did in the Bible. Those that know Old Testament, they know who Cyrus is. He's an important figure. And guess what? He didn't know God, and God used him. Incredible. So if you don't know God, that gives you hope right now. You could be a Cyrus. And one of the most amazing things with that is that Isaiah, 100 years before Cyrus was even born, Isaiah had this prophecy. Isaiah 45 was where they write about my Cyrus. I've anointed my Cyrus. God said, I've anointed my Cyrus. 100 years before Cyrus was even there. That's what he said. And isn't it interesting? This is Isaiah 45. Guess who was the 45th president of the United States? 45 is Trump. 45 is Cyrus in the Bible. 100 years before Cyrus became king, he said, my Cyrus, even though he does not know me, he's mine. I've anointed him to take over this system and start my system. And he told the Jews to rebuild the temple. Do you believe that God, these 7 years, is telling we need to come back to our Judeo-Christian values? It's what's made America thrive. It's what America's story is all about. Robert Hunt in 1620, November 11th, 1620, he knelt at Cape Henry. If you don't know this story, he knelt at Cape Henry, put a cross in the beach, and had this thing called the Mayflower Compact, where he dedicated the United States of America. He dedicated this land, basically this land, America, to God. Wow. And that was 400 years ago. In 2020, that was 400 years ago. 400 in the Bible it's deliverance. There are 400 years that the Jews were in captivity in Egypt until God freed them. And so who's to say that God is going to fulfill some things because of that covenant 400 years ago from Robert Hunt, really the first person to decree some amazing things. Because, our education and all that stuff, they have some fake history about our forefathers and how they were all atheists, and it's just not true. It's just not true. I'll talk about that in another video. I could talk about that for days. But that's what Cyrus did. Cyrus, God had this secular person, this person that did not know him, to do all this stuff for him. And then he actually became Christian. Like he basically became loving God, because in Ezra 1, he's like, I have all the kingdoms of the earth because the God of heaven is given to me. I'm paraphrasing, but it says in Ezra 1, it says, the God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth. He took over Babylon in one day, and he said that about God. And Daniel, this prophet, came up to him. They had the scroll of Isaiah, and he basically went up to Cyrus and he said, hey, there's this guy in the Bible and in our prophecies named Cyrus, and your name's Cyrus. Maybe that's you. And Cyrus is probably thinking, maybe that is me. But later on, once God anointed him and allowed him to do all this stuff, then he's like, wow, there is a God. And his culture that he was about to bring in, and his edict of telling the Jews to go back and rebuild their temple and their walls and their culture, was what God wanted. Because he wanted God to be at the center of all this. But one thing that had to happen first was something governmentally to take over this system that was evil and corrupt to the people, called Babylon. So is there a current Babylonian system that's happening right now? And is there a Trump that is not real kosher, and the media completely slammed him? And, they said all these Christians are backing Trump, but he's not kosher. Why are you doing this? He's not even a Christian. Why are you doing it? Because Cyrus. Because if he has a strategy that God has, if he's anointed by God to do something that's biblical, then we're for him. So what's he been doing? Well, he just said that obviously he put in his Supreme Court justices, and they tore down the overturned Roe v. Wade. Did all kinds of stuff with that. And the one thing that is concerning that is the selling of baby parts, the coercion of women from counseling of women. There's been a corrupt mob business that's gone on. It's all been about money. And if we had free abortions, I'm telling you, there wouldn't be a lot of abortions, and government wouldn't care. But the government has made this into this eugenics problem. You can go read about Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood and how it started, and it was all about eugenics, and now it's become even this crazy thing about selling baby parts, where they'll have women come in and they'll coerce them into getting abortions like at 3 months, because they need a 3-month-old liver to take it to some science lab, and then they'll pay the Planned Parenthood like thousands of dollars for doing that for them. It's absolutely crazy. And I want to prove this by showing you some things concerning Babylon. First, I want to say something amazing that happened in the 7-year period that we had from 2014, 2015 to 2021, 2022. I know it's hard for some of you to see because it goes from September to September. That's the Jewish year. And so God's calendar goes from September to September. And so from September 2014 to September 2015, that was a 7th year. So in the beginning of 2015 to 2022 is exactly 7 years. It's that 1 through 7 year period, and it's about to end. And so what happened this year on this Shemitah year, remember all the catastrophic things happened on the 7th year of a 7-year cycle, is that Supreme Court did some things, didn't they? Obviously, they overturned Roe v. Wade. 50 years, it's 50 years in the Bible is a Jubilee because 7 times 7 is 49. Remember I told you about sevens. And so after 7 times 7 is 49, the next year is an amazing Jubilee year. It'd be year 50. And so it'd been 50 years since that happened, since Roe v. Wade. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And so I want to tell you another phenomenon that most people don't know that happened this year. The overturning of Roe v. Wade, June 24th, 2022. Our year is 365 days in a year, right? An average year, 365 days. If you take 365 times 7, you get the number 2,555. If you take exactly, which is that number, so it's 365 times 7. If you minus that by the day, so 7 years to the day, 7 years to the day before June 24th was June 26th, 2015. That was when the Supreme Court signed gay marriage. From the time that they signed gay marriage on a Shemitah year, the 7th year, to the Shemitah year, 7 years to the day, to almost the minutes, they overturned Roe v. Wade. And not only that, but Clarence Thomas said, we need to revisit this, and one of those things was gay marriage. Maybe we need to revisit this. Why is this happening? Well, it's God, because it's been 70 years to the day. You cannot make it up. It's God. This is what's important about 7 year. It's the end of a cycle. And so God, there's reckoning that happens. God gets things done. What you reap, you will sow. And there's some evil people sowing some evil things. And so, and obviously it's, if you sow evil, God will give grace and will say, you did this and I'm going to do this. He kind of flips it. That's how God is. He's amazing. There's nobody like him. And so, man, I can't even fathom what's happened. I mean, this video's probably gone on for way too long now, but it's all right. I'm already 23 minutes now, but I just keep sharing all this stuff. I mean, I think the most important thing is that Roe v. Wade was selling of baby parts. And, I told you about Cyrus and Babylon. Well, the most important thing is this is Revelation 18, okay? And Revelation 18 tells you about Babylon the Great. This is in Revelation. So it talks about Babylon, the Old Testament, the actual Babylon. Well, there's another not mystery Babylon, but there's another Babylon it's basically a system, a world system that is evil, that God defeats, okay? Uses his angels to defeat. So I want to start here in 18:13. Revelation 18:13. It's telling you about all this stuff. It's a business, okay, and it's selling it's trading things. All right. It says cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, olive oil, flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, and the last thing it mentions in that long list is slaves. Human souls. Human trafficking. Human trafficking was brought up to Obama on a Shemitah year, on the 7th year of a cycle. He sat on his hands, didn't do anything. The end of 2015, after that Shemitah year in September, began this new cycle. began election year for America. And God raised up a Cyrus Trump. The church prophesied it there in 2015. Most Republicans didn't even even believe he was of God. They thought he was some type of antichrist. So the GOP ended up being fake, but the Christians got behind him. But the GOP, they said, there's some people that didn't even get behind him until like 2017, 2018, even later than that. And so he was talking about human trafficking. That was one of the biggest things that they talked about, was human trafficking when they had these elections. It was one of the biggest talking points. Then on the first week that Trump was inaugurated, in his first week in office, he was dealing with human trafficking, guys. This is Cyrus. Cyrus took over Babylon. God had him and raised him up to take over Babylon to deal with human trafficking. Trump is dealing with human trafficking. Trump appointed 3 justices that on this Shemitah year got Roe v. Wade, knocked it down to the states, got it out of their way federally, because there's money involved, there's body parts involved. It's a business, has nothing to do about helping people that have been raped and so that they can get rid of a problem or anything of that. I'm telling you, that's not what's going on here. This is a mob type business. This is terrible, inhumane trading of human souls and parts, like what it says in Revelation. God used Cyrus in the Old Testament to end Babylon, and God has raised up Cyruses to do this, to end this evil Babylonian system. Not just Trump, but Bolsonaro in Brazil. He used Boris Johnson, believe it or not, even though he just resigned and took a different route. God used him. Remember, Cyrus is a person that did not know God, but God used him. What did God use Boris Johnson for? Brexit. Remember Brexit? Now listen to this. Boris Johnson just resigned yesterday, miraculously, on the Shemitah year, where all this chaotic stuff happens. He resigned yesterday. Everybody's like, oh. And guess what happened? The day after, they write an article about Viktor Orban, who is a Cyrus, one of the biggest Cyruses of Europe. And he said, we don't need the EU. So God used Boris Johnson to get out of, do Brexit, to get out of the EU, get them their talons off of, out of Great Britain. And the day that Boris Johnson resigns, Viktor Orban says that he wants to do what they call, is it Huxit? Huxit, Hungary's independence from the EU. You cannot make that up. You cannot make this up. The very day after Boris Johnson resigns, God raises up another Cyrus to make something similar. And to market. And I cannot believe all the stuff that God's doing. It's incredible. God, there's nobody like God. So when the news talks about Q being conspiracy theorists and all this stuff, did they not talk about human trafficking all the way back in 2015? Look, you take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's out there concerning a lot of stuff. A lot of people say Q has caused people to sit on their hands because it's been too crazy. It's too, it's the conspiracy theories. Nothing ever happens, and it's false information. It's false hope and all this stuff. And even people say it's like a CIA thing. They're just leading people to go crazy. All these rednecks, because they're just sitting on their hands the military is going to take over or whatever. But you have to understand, it all started with human trafficking. The exposure of human trafficking. Q started with the exposure of human trafficking. So if there's any connection with Trump and Q at all, get it right and get it biblical. It's human souls, guys. It's business that's going on. It's kinking up the hose of revival, these terrible curses that are going on. If this is really going on, this is really a problem. And at least they expose that. Something to think about, something to pray about, right? So take Q with a grain of salt, but they talked about human trafficking. That's Bible. Revelation 18. It's all the goods of Babylon. And so that leads me to, I don't know what else to talk about, other than the Supreme Court is knocking many things down right now, and we need to be praying for them and praying for their protection, because they're going to deal with election fraud that's happened. They're going to knock all these things down, many things down to the state, and get them out from a federal level, because things are being exposed. There's been a mob that I believe has been paid have like these transactions on their phone, and then they're being paid by another person, and they are causing havoc. You have a website that posts the Supreme Court justices' addresses. It's a federal crime. Nobody gets caught for that. All the cyber security that we have. Our Attorney General in Washington, Merrick Garland, he does nothing or makes no arrest. The person in Greg Abbott in Texas has to sign an executive order for the border because there's all these people just crossing over the border, terrorists and just fentanyl and all this stuff. So he has to sign an executive order because our own Attorney General won't deal with it. Wow. Think about all these chaotic things that are happening on this Shemitah year. And God is using Cyrus-like figures, people that don't know him. But I'm telling you, a lot of people, like Boris Johnson, he had a choice. God used him for a reason, and God will raise up another leader. And just, it's funny because there was a person from Russia that said, tweeted, one of the person inner circle of Vladimir Putin, he said something funny. He said, like, I hope that Great Britain, they appoint a more professional leader there. And it's true. But the whole thing is that, God uses Putin. There's one point that Putin said in the 2000s, he literally said this, that he said that I am the only leader on earth that is fighting the Antichrist. He felt like he's all alone. It kind of sounds like Elijah in the Bible who thought that he was doing everything alone. So I'm not saying that's not a good thing for him to say. He's not alone. There's other Cyruses. There's Cyruses all across. Viktor Orban and Trump and Bolsonaro and Netanyahu and all these people, the dude from Philippines, all these people that God is raising up for such a time as this, governmentally, to get done what God wants, to put his system in place, to set the United States up to prosper. And he did that with what Trump did, that 70 years to the day from May 14th, 1948 to 2018. And guys, we're about to end this Shemitah year, and I want to tell you, it's a Jubilee. It's a Jubilee year in 2023. Come September, it's a Jubilee year. And how you know that is that 2022, which is 5782, if you, it's divisible by 7, and because it's divisible by 7, it's or 49 rather, it's divisible by 49, which is divisible by 49 the next year. After the 49th year, the next year is the 50th year. So 2023 is a Jubilee year. It's 5783, 2023 in our Gregorian calendar. And so, guys, I'm telling you, there's stuff happening right now. Something's got to give. I mean, you have all this fake stuff about insurrection on the news. You have, the election fraud's not been, we have 2,000 Mules that came out on a Shemitah year about, the ballot boxes and all the things, the fraud that happened in Wisconsin, I think yesterday. Yesterday, Wisconsin just banned ballot boxes. And so there's reform that's getting done in the election office. I mean, I could just talk forever. I've talked for 33 minutes now. So I think I'm going to stop. I'm going to have another video for you guys, though. Stay tuned. There's more information. I hope you got something out of this. I'm telling you right now, though, if this is an exciting year to be in God's favor and to know that God's real. Even though Cyrus did not know God, God did something for Cyrus. And really, it's not God did something for Cyrus. It's God did something through somebody that did not know him. And then that person had a choice. Just like Boris Johnson resigned and God got him off of the world stage, he could have stayed. And probably if he humbled himself and said what Cyrus said in Ezra 1, where, God, you have given me a kingdom or all the kingdoms. And he did. I believe God blessed Boris Johnson and he was anointed to be a Cyrus, but it just went downhill. I don't know what happened. But the whole point is that you need to know God. And it's an important thing to know God. It's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God if you're doing evil things like what these leaders are doing. They're doing evil things, evil sin. And the Bible says that when sin, it's like in a bowl. And when the cup of iniquity is what they call it. And when the cup of iniquity fills up, it pours over. And it usually happens at the end of 7-year periods. Manifest things. You sow a seed, you're going to reap a harvest, either bad or good. depending on what that seed was, good seed or bad seed. And so, man, it's a fearful year for governments that are not of God and things like that. And because this has happened with Roe v. Wade, what you're going to see in those states that do not follow a pro-life and all the other things, they're going to get shot down. The gavel, federally, gun control, maybe gay marriage, sanctity of marriage, a Bill of Rights on our phone. There's all kinds of things that are coming down the pipe that's interesting. You know, a digital Bill of Rights concerning the World Wide Web, as we'd say, internet. All these things that are happening in the Supreme Court. If there are states that do not follow, especially life, pro-life, and they continue abortions, you're probably going to see social and economic collapse in those states. And they're going to be states that shine, states that are blessed. And because of this gavel by the Supreme Court, now you're going to see this. States that shine, states that are complete chaos, and people leaving those states and going to these states. People are going to know that God's real. People are going to know that these states that are following this biblical precedent, these biblical principles, that's an open heaven. That's a good state to live in. They're going to be protected. Amazing. Amazing what God's doing right now. And so there's no good work or anything that you can do. There's no good works that justify you. It's only faith in Yeshua. It's only faith in Jesus. That's the only thing. God cannot smile upon you until you've said yes to Jesus into your heart. Say, Lord, I don't know, but take my life and do something with it. But what you first have to say is you have to say, Jesus, I believe that you died for me and that you rose again on the third day. And you believe in your heart that he did that. And when you believe in your heart that he did those two things, that he died for your sin, he died for all your mistakes, he died for all your ambition and what you think is doing good enough to get you to heaven. He died for all that. And he rose on the third day miraculously as a sign because there was no sin in him. The grave could not hold him. If you believe that he did that, Jesus comes into your heart. You accept him into your heart. Father God sees Jesus in you. He doesn't see you. He doesn't see any of your mistakes. He doesn't see any of your ambitions. He just sees perfect Jesus because you've accepted him. And now you walk out in this thing called grace, that Jesus did it all for you. That you don't have to do anything except step into the grace that God has given you and walk out to the best of your ability in submission, in honor, in complete surrender to God. Man, it's a freeing thing. There's nothing like it. You don't have to wait to get to heaven because you look like Jesus now. And if you were to die with Jesus in your heart, you immediately go to heaven. But you can experience heaven now. There's just this amazing stuff that's happening right now. So if you're a representative of God, it's a great time to be on the earth right now. And it's faith in Jesus. The faith that he died and rose again. Waking up every day makes you more excited for his history that you're seeing unfold right before your eyes right now. So I'm going to make more videos concerning all this stuff because, I mean, as you can see, I'm extremely excited. And so I will talk to you guys soon and see you till next video.